Who is the Hat Man? When researching paranormal activity, you are bound to stumble across the phenomenon known as shadow beings or shadow people, spectral shapes of light that take many forms from animals and insects to human-like. The most minute experiences can include an unsettling sighting to full-fledged paralysis and physical encounter. Yet the most mysterious and unique cases are those involving what has been dubbed the Hat Man. Described as having a Zorro-type hat, he wears a three-piece suit and a cape or a long trench coat. Other attributes ascribed to the Hat Man include occasionally wearing a watch that dangled from his hip, having either a goatee or being clean-shaven, and possessing glowing red or solid black eyes. Whatever his appearance, he is almost always sinister in nature. The following 4 stories are true encounters from individuals just like yourself, describing their experiences with the Hat Man. These experiences have confused and befuddled me for years. Being somewhat logical and searching for answers to events, I'm torn between what my logical mind is stating and what my senses have defined as truly paranormal. There are several members here who can identify with the ability to see spirits with the mind's eye, and it's this ability that has me questioning my logic. We all know about sleep paralysis and the dreamlike hallucinations one can have upon waking and finding oneself without the ability to move or speak. But what about when it occurs prior to falling asleep? Perhaps I should elaborate. There have been times when soon after I lay down to sleep, sometimes only seconds after, I can visualize and sense a presence. Normally, he is standing close behind me, although many times I've seen him standing in a doorway to the room I'm in. He is who most of us call the Hat Man, and he gives off a very terrifying vibe. He is pitch black, wears a wide brim hat and a trench coat. He never moves, neither closer nor further away. Sometimes, I lie awake trying not to close my eyes because I know what's coming next. Soon after the visualization, my ears begin to ring, my head starts to buzz, and from there the buzz takes over my body and sends me into paralysis. I feel like he's trying to gain access to my innermost thoughts and emotions. Not possession, mind you, but more like being read. I should mention that one of my biggest fears is being smothered or drowned, and the feeling I get during an episode is that of being buried alive. Not the physical sensation of pressure, but that I'm running out of air. I've had these episodes most of my life, way before I knew what a shadow person or who the Hat Man was. Words can express the fear that overtakes me when I hear the activities of others in the area and am powerless to alert them. There have been times when the ringing in my ears begin, then the vision. The only time I can control the progress of the paralysis is during the ear ringing. Once the buzz comes, it's too late. I haven't had an episode in quite a while, but I feel it's because my discovery on how to gain control of the situation. Once I learned how to snap myself out during the ear ringing, the occurrences became fewer and fewer and eventually stopped altogether. Just talking about this makes me feel the sense of a presence. I will say no more, but I can already hear the ringing. It was June 2014 in Los Angeles, California. I was sleeping on the top part of my bunk bed. I was 13 and hadn't had much experience with the supernatural or the paranormal before. I was lying on my back and my knees were up and my feet flat on the mattress. I was slowly falling asleep when I wanted to change positions, but found that I couldn't. I tried laying my legs flat down, but I still couldn't. I didn't have a blanket on me, so it started to get a little cold. I remember wanting to call out to my mom in the next room, but couldn't speak. I stayed like that for a few minutes, and during those few minutes, it started to get very hard to breathe. My breathing slowed down, and my heart was beating incredibly fast. I felt pressure on my chest, but saw nothing there. Once I was let out of this strange control, something told me to look down at my room floor, and I remember seeing a shadow figure. The night light in my room was on so I could see it clearly. It was like a shadow, and it was male. He was wearing a suit and a hat like a 1940s businessman, and in a blink of an eye, he was gone. I had these experiences more often after that, but I never saw another shadow figure. I remember one time hearing thumps in the wall, but I always just thought it was the neighbors, but it was in the early AM hours, so it couldn't have been. I researched this and found the old hag syndrome, but I'm still not sure what it was. I've been learning an incredible amount about shadow people lately. I never knew others had seen the same thing. I live in Coffeyville, Kansas, and I moved into an apartment building built in the 1920s. It, along with the Midland Theater next door, are known for paranormal activity. I've lived here 12 years and met the Shadow Man soon after I moved in. At first I'd see movement, but really never looked. As I started looking when I first realized something was there, a dark shadow of a man would walk across the room along the east wall. I told my friends about what I called the Shadow Man, not knowing that it was so widely known. It wears what I call a Dick Tracy hat. It's called a fedora. He wears a trench coat with the collar turned up. There are no details, just the definite dark shape. One time I sensed the shadow person coming from behind me and on my left. As I turned in my chair, my head and shoulders passed through the shadow. Time seemed to go in slow motion. What was 1 second seemed like 60. The shadow passed and on into the wall. I've never seen it again in that area of my apartment. I've never felt any fear. I had one experience that at first I didn't know what to think. The Shadow Man usually always acts the same. Never moves anything, just walks by. But I got up one morning and all my shoes and boots had been taken out of the closet and placed in a line, as if someone was stepping out of my bedroom. The Shadow Man or ghost seemed to be playing a trick. I've been sad the last couple of years. A new company bought the building and did a big remodel, and for whatever reason I don't see the shadow nearly as often as I used to. It truly is an amazing experience to witness, and I'm never afraid, only thrilled. This happened in the late 80s or early 90s. My brother and I were on our way home from Prudential Hollow. We had been there the biggest part of the day, just messing around the old home places. Prudential was a land company, and the hollow was shut down back in 1975 and 76, and all the remaining houses burned to the ground. It was getting late and we decided to head back home, a good half-hour to 45-minute walk. We were walking and talking, not paying too much attention on what was going on around us. After all, we had made this walk plenty of times before. We had made it to the head of the hollow and was walking up the straightaway that led to Silas Hollow and the turnoff going to our house. We were snapped back to reality when we heard something coming down the side of the hill to our right. We looked to where the sound came from, thinking that it was a wild animal, and saw an old man come off the hillside, step into the roadway, and start walking towards us. He was wearing a broadcloth type coat and an old black slew hat with the brim shading his face. He walked hunched over with his hands clenched behind his back. No big deal, just another guy out for a walk, I thought. As we neared each other, my brother and I eased to the left so he could pass to the right. We spoke a casual, "Hey, how's it going?" and he muttered and nodded his head as he passed. Both of us felt uneasy, but kept it to ourselves. About a minute passed without either of us saying anything, and I asked my brother if he knew the man, and he said no, that he had never seen him before. We walked for a couple of more minutes, I guess 3 or 4, when we heard the same noise again, and automatically looked to the hillside, and that same man walked off the hill, stepped into the road, and started walking towards us again. This time we didn't speak, and my brother whispered for me not to look him in the eye. After he passed us the second time, my brother looked at me and said something like, "Frank, something ain't right about this. Let's get out of here as fast as we can." I agreed, and we ran almost to the house. We got within eyesight of the house, and my brother said that he thought we were safe enough to stop and catch our breath. After we rested a few minutes, we went to his house and sat on his porch and tried to comprehend what we had just saw. At the time, we couldn't come up with any answers, so his wife suggested we go talk to our mother. We did, and she told us that the man we saw had been seen by our father and older brothers years before, and that she had no idea who or what he was. I know it's been over 20 years since I've seen the specter, but I still can't get it out of my mind. Who is he? What is he? Having either a goatee or being clean-shaven, and possessing glowing red or solid black eyes. Whatever his appearance, he is almost always sinister in nature. The following 4 stories are true encounters from individuals just like yourself, describing their experiences with the Hat Man. These experiences have confused and befuddled me for years. Being somewhat logical and searching for answers to events, I'm torn between what my logical mind is stating and what my senses have defined as truly paranormal. There are several members here who can identify with the full-fledged paralysis and physical encounter. Yet the most mysterious and unique cases are those involving what has been dubbed the Hat Man. Described as having a Zorro-type hat, he wears a 3-piece suit and a cape or a long trench coat. Other attributes ascribed to the Hat Man include occasionally wearing a watch that dangled from his hip. Who is the Hat Man? When researching paranormal activity, you are bound to stumble across the phenomenon known as shadow beings or shadow people. Spectral shapes of light that take many forms from animals and insects to human-like. The most minute experiences can include an unsettling sighting to full ability to see spirits with the mind's eye, and it's this ability that has me questioning my logic. We all know about sleep paralysis and the dreamlike hallucinations one can have upon waking and finding oneself without the ability to move or speak. But what about when it occurs prior to falling asleep? Perhaps I should elaborate